Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome on this chilly winter's day to this Nedbank webinar. We value your time. To our clients, a special welcome. As always, we appreciate your support and the time that you dedicate to this webinar. To all other visitors, we appreciate that you make the time to attend this webinar, and we trust that through this session today, a seed will be planted that you start a relationship with Nedbank in the near future. I also want to welcome all my Nedbank colleagues on the webinar, and if you allow me just to acknowledge Nedbank senior leadership. Craig Evans, Divisional Executive for Client Network Southern Division. My name is Herman de Kok. I'm Executive Head Sales and Service for Business Banking, and it's my privilege to be your host over the next 2 hours. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 3 panelists in the session today, and they will provide us an overview on the opportunities, the benefits, but the risks as well of trading in the digital world, which is, if we just reflect on the change that the COVID pandemic brought, the new normal. If you look at the top left of your screen, you will see a link where you can post your questions. This link will be live throughout the entire session, through all the presentations. So at any point on any slide, if you have a question, please don't wait till the end. You're more than welcome at that point to post your question. After every presentation, we will have time to address some of the questions. We might not have time to address all of the questions. However, this session is recorded, and the recording of the session, together with a documented questions and answers, will be circulated in the next week to all the attendees on this webinar. If you do experience a freeze on the screen, that might be due to variability in bandwidth, unstable bandwidth. Just refresh and the broadcast would resume. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to read the following quote by Mark Zuckerberg just a while ago. When you give people ability to stay connected with all the people they care about, and you make it so they can express new things about themselves or in communication with other people who they care about, then you just open up new possibilities. You make it so people can stay connected in ways that they couldn't before. Now, when Mark Zuckerberg made this comment, there was no sight of the life-changing event called COVID-19. And I'm sure that as we go through the content today and discuss the content and reflect on the content, that you will agree with me that this saying by Mark Zuckerberg is just as applicable in the business context. I think if we reflect on it, there's different ways to look at it. Did COVID disrupt? Did COVID end things? Or did COVID just bring the future closer, where every business will be challenged to revisit your strategy, whether you are agile and sustainable in the 4th Industrial Revolution? And with that introduction, I'd like to introduce our first panelist, who's connecting with us from Cape Town. If you allow me to read Terence Govender's resume. Terence Govender is Director at Mazars Advisory. Terence is currently the National Director of IT Advisory for Mazars SA. He commenced his education in electronics and went on to study Novell and Microsoft. Currently, he is certified in COBIT, ITIL, TOGAF, and also has an MBA from Oxford Brookes University. He commenced his career as a consultant, then moved to corporate with the roles which include, but not limited to, technical advisor and architect, before securing roles as CIO and COO for blue-chip listed companies in South Africa. Terence returned to consulting in a partnership specializing in IT governance, risk, compliance, and cybersecurity. Thereafter, he joined Mazars as Director of IT Advisory with the immediate focus of helping organizations building cyber resilience, information privacy programs, and improve IT governance. Terence has over 20 years' experience in technology in the financial services and health industries. And it's now my pleasure to hand over to Terence.
Good morning, everyone. Herman, thank you for that introduction. You're too kind. I think, as you said, I'm in the midst of the cold in Cape Town, and it's that 7-day rain where the soles of your shoes don't even get dry and the next rain is here. So at least I'm warm and comfortable today. So I think without further ado, stepping straight into it, we're going to be focusing, I think, on cybercrime, the impact on e-commerce. What does it bring to your business? And I termed it the bad, the ugly, and the good, because I think we'll end off with what is the good that's come out of COVID. Herman, back to your point around what has COVID brought to the environment. So if we move straight into it, we're going to be looking at what is happening in the world today. COVID-19 in the context of cybercrime. The industries that we predict from our research and why they're going to be the target. E-commerce on the rise, trends in the industry that we are seeing, and most importantly is what could you do to protect yourself, both I think as an employer and as employee, into the new norm that we are now seeing. So if we look at what's happening in the world, I'm just going to flash all of it up at the moment and we'll speak through all of it. So we had the outbreak of coronavirus. At the same time, it brought about, I think, something that's been happening already around Google itself. And if you see there, Google blocked more than 240 spam messages related to COVID-19. At the same time, Google also mentioned that email users are being impersonated or phished, and we'll talk about that a bit later. And impersonating authorities like the World Health Organization, capitalizing on less secure remote work setups, which we'll talk about as well. At the same time, we're also seeing the fact that hackers have hit every country on Earth with coronavirus-themed cyber attacks. And I think at the end of the day, as much as hacking has taken place all the time, what's come about recently is the focus of what Corona has brought and the attacks that's come into play, and why the focus at this point in time. And again, we'll focus on that a bit later. But at the same time, what we're also seeing is the fact that COVID-19 has fast-tracked online shopping in South Africa specifically, and we'd look at some of that stats. Consumers have switched to digital shopping alternatives, with 37% of South Africans saying they are shopping more online. In the States, e-commerce and retail revenue are still rising in North America, and we're going to look at some of those stats. And in places like the UK and the Nordic countries, in Denmark, for example, we're seeing that, again, there's an increase in e-commerce activity from that perspective. So there almost seems to be this influx there's a myriad of shopping online, e-commerce that's been driven out by Corona. And a lot of people are saying, and as we get into it, that they will probably continue with shopping online post an antivirus or post-Corona coming to an end from that perspective. So if we take a step further, let's maybe look at a number of things that I think is being created. So apart from the e-commerce side, you're obviously seeing people like Woolworths or retailers that are also becoming more innovative. So with this is the expedition of the fourth industrial revolution with more innovation. So bringing together a bit of bricks and mortar, which is also nearing the end, but bringing together bricks and mortar with click-through, so combining almost online with the new norm, or the old norm, which I should say, around shopping or having bricks and mortar buildings. But let's step a little bit more into, I think, a couple of interesting statistics that we're also seeing. And I think you should be aware of what is happening again out there. So 75 records are stolen by hackers every second, anytime that every part of the day. And as you and I would wake up and go to work, these hackers wake up, sit behind a computer and look at saying, how am I going to exploit and how am I going to earn money today? Around about 30,000 websites are hacked daily. 24% of data breaches are as a result of human error, phishing or business process errors, and we'll talk a little bit about phishing later on. But literally just someone clicking on an email could expose your entire network from that perspective. And at the end of the day, an average cost of a record on the black market is around about 3,000 Rand. In fact, this was still at, I think, the 16 Rand to the dollar mark, so it's probably a little bit higher now. And let's take a look at why this is the case. So This is from the Panamon Institute, done in comparison with IBM. And you can clearly see that the reason why, if you look at the industries on the left-hand side, from health all the way down to public sector research, the cost of a record, and the reason why the cost range from that low to high is because of what they call PI, or personal identifiable information, which, by the way, POP is now being regulated in South Africa. And a breach in your system would expose that health record, and hence it will then bring about on the black market this information and the cost of this record on the black market. So you can clearly see why there's a need, because of how wealthy or how lucrative this could be. They're envisaging that the cybercrime market by 2024 is probably going to be worth $1 trillion, currently sitting at about 700 billion at the moment. And that's the what this market is the value worth at the end of the day. So hence, if you just take a quick calculation, if you had 10,000 personal records at around about 3,000 Rand, that's 30 million Rand already. That's besides the cost of the remediation that you have to incur, and that's besides the cost of the fine that you're going to incur by the regulator, in addition to the reputational damage that you will face. So it's important to know and understand why the cost is what it is, and the reason for it. And at the end of it, we'll focus a little bit about what you can do to help or to protect yourself from that perspective. So let's move on. Context of cybercrime. Okay, so the lockdown is introduced, came about to introduce or prevent the spread of the coronavirus. It has resulted in the unprecedented amount of people in this work from home situation, not just South Africa, globally. Very few organizations have actually catered or prepared for this type of business continuity. Most have catered for some form of disaster, and in that case also it's either you work from home or you go to a disaster site. All employers and employees are vulnerable. So let's look at why. People tend to be more relaxed at home, and the mindset of the psychology is cybercrime happens at the office. They're after the office assets. They're after the corporate assets. So that mindset of the fact that you're now working from home, the corporate network has actually expanded. So there's actually no perimeter anymore because you are forming part of that network from home. Based on that, you often find that remote working users, and in this case, because of the amount of people that have to now work from home, they often don't have antivirus software or what we call virtual private network software, which almost dedicates a link between your home and your office or wherever you have a secure network set up. Home computers are really protected with antivirus or personal firewall software. So you often find the home computer is there, and you find that the kids or hubby or wifey is busy with budgets or spreadsheets, and it's often unprotected. We go into there, over weekends, and we find that, we surf a little bit, but there wasn't a need. Now it's become a need to protect these machines. And because of this, what's actually now happened is that it's become the perfect playground for a cyber hacker. They look for these opportunities. They look for the weakest link. There is no discrimination from that perspective. So let's just focus on who's from our research have become the target industries. So firstly, as I said, the cyber criminals have no discrimination. Whether you're black, blue, white, green, wealthy, unwealthy, they start from the weakest link and where they can exploit, and they move forward and they find that entry. So almost think of it this way, is if I've got my house and I've got a security guard at the front, and beyond that I've got nothing else. Or I've got my house and there's nothing else. There's no burglar bars, there is no security cameras, there's no beams, and that becomes the weakest link. But the moment I have a security gate, I have beams, I have an alarm system, it makes it more difficult. Not that someone can't get in. If they want to, they will still, but it becomes more and more difficult. So there's no discrimination. They start from the weakest link. So let's look at the first target is all remote working users. And as I said before, the reason they have little to no antivirus software. So again, easier to become a target. No personal firewalls. Not all work computers have secure software such as virtual private networks. And you find because of COVID, you're spending a lot more time online. So not just the kids are doing homework remotely, but over weekends, over evenings, there's a lot more time to be spent. So it's been spent online. So that's the first target. The second is SMMEs, and the reason for SMMEs being the target is that SMMEs often don't have the budget to spend on sophisticated security software or monitoring tools. In fact, it's more reactive more than anything else. COVID's also driven a lot more of businesses, especially if you look at restaurants that couldn't trade in the first couple of weeks, moved into an online sales, and so did some of the retailers or smaller retailers. And what that happened is that it's created a channel for them, very innovative, to start to trade. However, they didn't always stick to or adhere to the relevant security or the rules around security of protecting themselves. So, for example, they would offer credit card payments, but they actually never made sure that that channel of accepting a credit card payment as well as inputting your personal information was actually secure. So they've become the target from that perspective. And then lastly is the healthcare and medical industry. So the hackers are already claiming to have pathogen formulas for the coronavirus in return for cryptocurrencies. And what you find is people are either trying to make a quick buck by trying to exploit, again, trying to buy these pathogen formulas and onwards sell them to the pharmaceuticals. And what you'll also find is that as the medical industry gets desperate in not finding a solution, they will start to explore these opportunities because you never know where the sequence of pathogens might lie. At the same time, in the US and the UK, there have already been scams reported of organizations offering PPE equipment. You pay, but there's no delivery. In fact, in my previous webinar that I did, literally after the webinar, we got a call from one of the clients that said, we think we've been scammed. And what we actually found, just as a matter of interest, was the fact that it was reported as a South African scam, but after our investigation, we found that it was actually a group of Nigerians out of Nigeria that mimicked a South African company and scammed an Italian company out of €5,000 by literally just registering a South African company, having a legal bank account in South Africa. By the time we traced it, the money moved to 2 other banks in South Africa, back into Nigeria, and disappeared. So that's how sophisticated they are getting, and that's what's literally been happening from an online perspective in terms of who the targets are and what we can expect to see between those industries. So if we move along, how do these things happen? It happens through something called phishing, ransomware, and malware. And I'm going to touch on it just very lightly. Lucas, who was one of our speakers, will go into more detail. So effectively, how they actually penetrate this network is really through something called phishing. And phishing is really where you send a targeted or sophisticated email to someone and you solicit information. The most famous one that I've seen going around is there's a SARS refund, please complete this form, and you complete the form with all your personal details, all your banking details, and the next thing you've got money siphoned out of your account. The next one is I'm going to talk about malware, which is malicious ware, and then move on to ransomware. Malware also moves through an email or could be spread through a USB device that you plug into your machine, and it stands for malicious ware. And what it actually does is it sits on your machine. It's a file that sits there and either waits for a trigger or for some information to happen. And what it does is it either, again, solicits information from you, or it actually then locks your hard drive, locks your machine, locks your computer network. You get a message on your screen that says that this machine has been locked and you've got to pay some form of cryptocurrency to unlock or to get a decryption key. And that's where the concept of ransomware comes into play. So either we expose your data or you cannot access your data. It's locked. And until you pay us something, we will not release those encryption keys. And again, that's really happened. We've been investigating cases where, someone sent an email as a director to the HR department saying, I'm not in the office because of COVID. Please direct my salary into this bank account. I've had some issues. I've been scammed, which was the scam itself. And literally HR almost went to process that transaction and decided, let me just call to verify. And in calling back the actual physical number, realized that this was a scam. But the bank account was original. It was confirmed with the bank. Everything else, the whole email trail was legit. The person, the director's confidential information, the employee number, all of that was there. So it was absolutely legit. And that's how sophisticated these attacks become as well. So Lucas will speak a little bit more about that. So what can I do to safeguard myself and my organization? So I think there's a couple of things. I think firstly, as a CIO, Chief Information Officer, a risk officer, and I think just overall responsible for your organization, it's just making sure that each laptop that is in my control have antivirus software, that we are scanning information, we are scanning for things like malware, that the moment something in particular is picked up or identified, that it's reported. Ensure that you've got what we call virtual private network software, or enable something called two-factor authentication, and that's pretty much for everyone is your banking systems, where you have a login name and then you have a alphanumeric or a numeric password or number that is sent to you via your phone. So that is the two-factor authentication. So just making sure that there's always something that's double checking, so to speak. Where possible, try and encrypt hard drives and maximum password lengths where applicable, and change the passwords. We've often seen people have password, or the wife's name, or the husband's name, or the kid's name. So I think the longer the key strength and the more complex, the difficult it will become to crack. Ensure that that any software that you need to collaborate with, whether it's Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype, that you make sure that you download and configure that ahead of people working remotely from that perspective. The next thing is to ensure that your policies and your procedures are exactly the same. Don't change it because of COVID. Don't reduce or increase the time frame. If your password length is 30 days and people are working remotely, keep them as they are. It just makes sure that extra length of security, that if someone is trying to crack your password, they've got a shorter space of time to do that. As employees, some of the do's and don'ts. So do make sure that when you're working from home, you still have a password and a network that you log into. If you don't, please report that to your IT. Don't plug in foreign or unapproved memory sticks into your laptops. That's where malware might be sitting, irrespective of where it comes from. Check with your IT department with what sites are deemed safe and unsafe for you to browse. And if you can, make sure that you have the HTTPS sign at the logo on your browser. That just ensures a level of safety that you have. And report any strange emails or activities that you may notice on your laptop or your computer. For employees, some of the don'ts, again, don't do any banking transactions without the HTTPS at the URL. If it is, or any, in fact, if you're trying to transact with your credit card or anything, and if you find that it doesn't have the S, which means secure, don't transact. That already is a red flag to say something might be amiss here. Don't give any confidential information to anyone that you know, anyone that you don't know, unless you have prior knowledge of the request. So again, don't give off a password or anything else from someone that might be phoning from your IT department during this time. I'm sure policies and procedures will protect from that perspective. And don't respond to any emails from COVID-19. We've also seen where people have phoned and said, you've been in contact, you've been at this shopping mall, we'd like to get your information because we're doing contact tracing. Don't do that. If there's anything, anyone from the health department will contact you directly and will have a legitimate authentication from that perspective. So just some of the do's and don'ts. So I'd now like to move on to, I think, the more positive, and maybe what we're seeing as the rise in e-commerce, as we say. So let's focus on a couple of key trends. Fewer bricks and mortar stores required. I think that we're starting to see now that COVID's brought about is that people can transact. People can actually do and function. And that's brought about the need for the fact that there won't be as much as bricks and mortar stores. And that's both in the retail and in the corporate office. Smaller office footprint with only meeting rooms are required. So again, we're seeing the fact that there's no longer a need to have a massive office space, massive offices. People are working from home far more productively, and there might just be a need to have a smaller office to have a meeting with a client if needs be, or to sign a specific document that actually needs a physical signature on. We can see that more people can work from home and are actually more productive because there's less travel time. Lunchtime, I think, is also a little bit reduced from a perspective that you have a sandwich, I come back to my desk and I continue working. A bit of a danger in that as well, but we're actually seeing more productivity coming out from working from home scenarios. More time spent online and more time is spent on education, gaming, and side hustles. And what side hustles is, just for everyone who don't know, side hustles is what COVID's brought about. In fact, it was before, but it's become more prominent now, is where people are spending more time educating themselves into other areas. And a typical example I know of is a doctor who literally has taken up, studied online makeup artist, and is now doing makeup artist over the weekend. And those are some of the side hustles. In fact, she claimed that she was actually making more money becoming a makeup artist than what she actually was as a doctor in public sector, for what that's worth. So you can clearly see that people are spending a lot more time online. There's a move to online meetings and collaboration. Previously, it was quality and brand when people shopped at bricks and mortar. It's now availability and price that is sought online. So if something is available and the price is good, people are buying. There's also reduced business travel. So because of collaboration tools such as what we're having now, people are traveling less for business and are finding that it is still more effective in conducting business this way and reduce the travel costs. So there's a lot of business benefit apart from saving on the water and lights and the bricks and mortar type buildings. There's a lot more other benefits from that perspective. In shopping itself, groceries, gadgets, clothes are the most purchased, and in fact, some of if we go further into clothes items, over the last 2 months, it's actually been pajamas and tracksuits, just as a matter of interest. So you can clearly see that online is moving into that chasm from shopping online, and the level or the category of spend is going to increase. So what we are starting to see is a trend in books, and a trend into further gadgets from that perspective. So let's look at e-commerce quickly. 30% average increase in online sales reported by retailers in the USA alone. In South Africa, close to 37% increase in online shopping, and 55% is done via smartphone apps. Important is the next point is by 2022, South Africa will have 25.5 million smartphones that will be in use. And if you look at that in correlation to the fact that 55% are already transacting via smartphones, that alone tells you where the future is going. Food and beverage, electronics and gadgets, healthcare and clothes are in the top 10 items that are purchased online. Across Europe and the US, 52% of shoppers that were surveyed say that they will not return to physical grocery stores post-COVID-19, and that's just grocery stores. When we carry on further into the research, again, the category of spend moves from grocery stores to clothing to retailers, etc., etc. So you can clearly see that once the habit sets in, people are going to become used to this and will continue to purchase online. In Canada alone, sales have outperformed bricks and mortar by as much as 40%. And here what we looked at was there was a store in Canada that had a bricks and mortar store and then moved to online sales about 2 years ago. And with COVID-19 now, that's expedited that their online sales have actually outgrown their physical bricks and mortar sales by as much as 40%. And that I think is scary. At the same time, you've seen an increase in online spend across other businesses in the value chain. So DHL reported a 20% increase in their business during the pandemic, and that's purely because they've become that online courier. So the value chain itself also expands. On the right-hand side, I know it's a little bit small print, but I'll read it out to you. Essentially what it is on the green bar is, the pink bar is page views that happen on site. And this is the monthly shopping activity, 2019 versus 2020. And literally you can see that at some point in March this year, the amount of order outstrips the amount of page views. So which means people are actually now just buying. Before they were browsing a lot before they bought. Now they're buying more than what they're actually browsing. So they know what they want. They go in, they order it, and it gets delivered from that perspective. The next graph is literally what I was saying about North America, and what this is saying is that literally sales have increased by over 100% online in North America, and you can clearly see the jump from April, so that was January to June, and you can clearly see the jump from about 25% in April, spikes up to 100% in March, and in May goes up to 120%, drops a little bit, but you can clearly see it's going to hover around the 125% mark from that perspective. And this just confirms the fact that the US consumers in itself, and as we can see the evidence in South Africa, is going to be the new norm where they're going to be shopping online a lot more. So in conclusion, I want to leave you literally with three aspects. The new norm, and the new norm is bricks and mortar online is in. Bricks and mortar is out, online shopping is in. Corporate network will extend to the home. 40% of people will not return to the office as we know it. And the new rules of engagement, social distancing will continue, and so will online shopping. Cybercrime will continue, the form of phishing and ransom attacks. You've just got to be aware of it and know when and how and to be careful around it. The health industry and work from home will continue to be the targets. Again, it's how you protect yourself. And then lastly, e-commerce. So online shopping will continue to rise with no limitation on products or no borders. Availability of goods and services will take precedent over the brands and price. And my last comment to you is really now is the best time to ensure that you have some form of online presence, some form of digital strategy. As Herman said in the start, COVID-19 would have either expedited your journey, and if not, then it's certainly something that you should be thinking of, because in every adversity is opportunity. And I think now is the time for you to be online, because in a couple of years' time, if you don't have that presence, you're going to be like two ships passing in the night. So connect with your consumer, reach out to them, and establish that online presence. So I'm going to pause there. I've said a lot in a quick space of time. I'm going to pause there, and Herman, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Terence. Ladies and gentlemen, just again an invitation. You're more than welcome to post questions. We're going to touch on a couple of questions. We do have time for that. Just quickly, for those Oetin from AVTS Roadworthy Stations ask whether the slides will be shared. Definitely, for those, we are going to, as mentioned, the recording of this will be circulated to yourselves, as well as the content of the sessions. Terence, I think a question that I'd like to touch on, and there's one statistic that I saw that very interesting. If you look at the British Museum, that used to have 2,000 visits, online visits daily, now increased to 75,000 online visits daily. It's one thing to, as a business, understand and embrace the digital race, to set up your business to trade online, but it's really important to make sure that you are able to monetize the services that you provide and the products that you provide. What would you recommend to business owners as they embrace this digital strategy, to keep in mind to make sure that in the end you do make money?
Absolutely. So certainly I think you're 100% right. I think there's various ways that you can start to monetize online services from that perspective. The first is obviously, if you just take, for example, the British Museum, is to have a reduced rate where you can offer people to come in, still get the online view. And what we're also seeing is that a lot of sort of socialpreneurship is also happening in that manner, where people are starting to realize it's not going to be the real life scenario, but I can have a look at this online and pay or contribute towards it. So just out of just monetizing, people are contributing, I think, just out of social responsibility. But absolutely, I would say there's definitely an opportunity to start to bring your consumer into the online and monetize what you offer. My only advice would be to look at your pricing strategy around what and how you monetize, because people will pay a fair price. As I said, some of the key findings was that it's around availability now, but it's also around the price. So if the price is right and it's available, I will buy the product. But absolutely, you're going to have to look at monetizing that, and people will pay, as we've seen. There's absolutely no doubt about it.
Thank you, Terence. And maybe just for the audience, I think it is a very important topic as you set up your digital strategy, to make sure that you do use the information and the trends from available research, also the content that is shared in this session. And please, if you have any questions around that, do post it. From Nedbank's perspective, it's important to note that as you set up your digital strategy, you make sure that you have the infrastructure to give your clients a convenient experience when they select your goods and when they pay. And we'll touch on that later in the platform discussion with our third panelist. But in the end, everything needs to be in place to make sure that you also give your customer a convenient payment experience. We've got various payment options that can help you to sell your goods and services online. I'm just briefly going to mention them, but you can engage with your bankers to get more information. We do have the information readily at hand. If I think of Nedbank Lite, this helps you to easily accept card payments from a business website. Nedbank Enterprise, you can actually build your own customized payment solution and be in complete control of your customer's payment experience. And then there's Nedbank Divert. Now, this solution allows you to customize and send your invoices digitally, receive and remote and online payments. So there's a number of solutions. As you today are going to be exposed to this digital strategy that is already available from Nedbank that can assist you in putting the strategy together. I have a question here, Terence, from Sabri Mosafal from Caltech Salt River. I'm going to read a question, and I just want to provide more context, I think, and now I understand and interpret the question. Sabri says, in my view, all other industries need to normalize before the fuel industry recovers its pre-COVID volumes. What is your view on the positioning of fuel and convenience retail in terms of medium and long-term recovery? And I think if we then think of that in this context of trading in the new normal, having a digital solution, I think it's a very interesting question. If you think about fuel retailers today with your forecourt business, but then also your convenience store, and how do you use technology to increase your sales and your customer feed?
Sure, quite a mouthful. So I think, firstly, you'd have to consider the fact that, as I think, Sabri, as you mentioned, the way the economy is going to unlock or open is going to affect, I think, the way industries are going to come into play. So if you take the fuel industry, for example, and I know I've been tracking quite a bit with Cecil at the same time. If you take the fuel industry and where it's going, right, obviously the demand has dipped now. So you'll find that there's a massive amount of, let's call it, stockpile in certain areas or certain cases. And as the lockdown will open up, you'll find that backlog will catch up, I think, from that perspective. So that's my first view of the fact that there's probably going to be, where some industries are lagging, they're going to go through a bit of that spike where, as the economy opens, the airlines open, the demand for fuel will increase. You will find that will happen. So that's the first thing. In terms of a digital strategy in the fuel and retailer, again, I think I'd have to understand a little bit more about how that industry works per se, to understand where and how digital disruption could work. I mean, if you look at, for example, the overall Airbnb from hospitality, I mean, that was disrupted completely from literally just a couple of clicks and I have a back room in someone's house somewhere. So I need to understand, I think, a little bit more on how that works, to look at saying, what's the digital strategy for the fuel and for retailers, and how do you bring it into play? I have no doubt that there would be ways that you could look at digitizing that industry overall, and this is probably the right time to look at what it is. So while I might not have the full answer right now, Herman, for Sabri, I think we'd have to look at it into more detail and to look at where in the value chain of the fuel industry, where is value being created and where is value being destroyed, both pre and post COVID, and then start to look at how do you start to look at the gaps of where value is being destroyed to create more value in a digital strategy.
Terence, thank you. And Sabri, again, I think it's why I think it's such an important question is, first off, from a cybercrime perspective, I think Terence showed the targeted industries, but ultimately, if we think about it, with many employees working from home, all industries are actually at risk and targeted, and that's a very important point that we need to keep in mind. And equally, if we talk about the necessity to embrace the fourth industrial revolution that challenges current business operating models, current monetizing models, and accentuates the importance of connecting with your customer base through digital means, or use that to give them a great client experience when they're at your site. Every industry will be challenged with that. Later on, one of our panelists is going to touch on platforms and the importance of that in the fourth industrial revolution, and I think that's also going to give you some more information. Preggy Pillay from PND Flow Technologies asked a mouthful of a question. I think it's a very important question, Preggy, that I will touch on. And in the next session, when our next panelist, Lucas Venter, is going to present, where he's going to go a bit more in depth on cyber fraud, he will also touch on that. But let me read the question, I think, for the entire audience. I think it's a very important question. How do banks verify or allow open accounts for these fraudulent companies? I've had intercepted email where some outside party mimicked a law firm, then sent back the banking details on a Nedbank form. The name of the account provided was the actual law firm's name, but the account was obviously not. Now, very important, so the fraudster presented themselves as a supplier you know, but the account was not the right account, obviously. Now, why can banks flag these kinds of EFTs and deposits? So that, I think your question reads then beforehand, so that we can detect it. Now, Peggy, thank you for that question. I think it's a really important question, and Nedbank provides in our commercial banking, electronic banking platform, Nedbank Business, a functionality called Account Verification Service. And that service exactly is targeted at this, so that when you load the beneficiary, which you think is the beneficiary you know, it will pick up that it is a fraudulent account number and will, in real time, warn you so that you can avoid making a payment to a fraudster. So that functionality for all our Nedbank Business users, all our business owners that use Nedbank Business, that functionality is available on your electronic banking platform to use to exactly prevent this fraud. I'm not sure if you want to mention anything to that, Terence. I know Lucas is also going to go into more detail on that.
Yeah, just quickly, I think, Pregi, these hackers are becoming so sophisticated that they're even passing through some of these channels. So even though I think the banks will continue to improve their security, their fraud and analytics capabilities, the hackers are becoming more and more sophisticated. There's something called spear phishing, where they actually target specific aspects. Even the case that we worked in before with one of the banks, the bank account, the company, everything was completely legit, right up into the IDs that were presented to open the bank account. It is only once you go beyond that do you start to see the fraud that exists behind the scenes of that. So I think just to that point, Herman and Pregi, is that these guys are becoming more and more sophisticated. As one scam is uncovered or discovered, they move on to the next. It is becoming more and more difficult, but the assurance that I can give is I think technology is also improving to start to pick these things up in the form of AI or analytics, which I think a lot of the banks are using at the moment to start to look at trends and start to predict, I think, more the future analysis of information to prevent this coming down the line.
Terence, thank you. We have time for two more quick questions. The one question from one of our Nedbank colleagues. This is back on the e-commerce side and the trends, Terence. What does the rise in e-commerce mean for real estate investors?
Okay, and just make a note of that. So the rise in real estate for real estate, I think, sure, if I understand it correctly, I think it's going to be still around, the fact that the industry itself will still exist, but the way it engages is probably going to change. The investment that you have as a real estate, I think, still continues from there. The platform that the way you engage will change. The way the digitization happens will change. But the investment itself in sort of the real estate, that is still going to be secure. I think you just got to look at the industry itself and look at saying, how do I encourage? In fact, I see more people again through the channel being able to invest and to buy and to acquire property globally. From that perspective, again, I don't have to be in a certain place to do this transaction. I can be anywhere in the world and I can do this transaction. So from my perspective, I see that it will increase from that. I can't see how the investor will not increase. In fact, it'll just create more opportunity and exposure in going into the digital world, if I'm understanding the question correctly.
Thank you, Terence. Then last question from Shana Khalidon from Oro Africa. I will take this one then, Shana. The question is the Nedbank account verification solution only able to verify a Nedbank account number? No, all account numbers, and then to warn you if that is a fraudulent account, in other words, not linked to that beneficiary you need to pay. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to move to our next panelist. And Terence, thank you very much for the insights. Thank you for Mazars. Nedbank is proud to have a relationship with Mazars. We really value your time and the insights that you shared with us today. Thank you very much, Terence.
No problem.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if we just reflect on some of the information challenges and cybersecurity, maybe just to mention some stats that I think underlines the importance of our alertness and our awareness on cybercrime. If we look at just from the month of January to March this year, the phishing sites went up 350%. Then you saw the stats that Terence showed in terms of the activity of fraudulent or fraudsters online. If I look at since 2013, the number of records that are stolen from breaches are at a rate of 44 per second. Terence mentioned the health industry is targeted, and the World Health Organization experienced a 5-fold increase in cyber attacks since the start of this pandemic. So this just underlines the importance of, although there are great opportunities and benefits, we also need to be very much aware of the risk. And as Nedbank, as an organization that strives to be world-class at managing risk, we want to ensure that our clients also get the benefit from this drive, so that we really partner with you to manage your risk. And we thought it would be good to now do a bit of a deep dive on cybercrime and the trends that we see, and going into a bit more detail. And that's what our next panelist, Lucas Venter, is going to talk about. And now just to read Lucas's resume, Lucas Venter is from Nedbank Group Forensic Services. Lucas was born in Durban and graduated at the University of the Witwatersrand in 1990. Prior to joining Nedbank in 2004, Lucas worked as a senior special investigator at the National Prosecuting Authority's Directorate of Special Operations. He presently heads up the analytic and forensic technology in Group Forensic Services at Nedbank, where he is in charge of a multidisciplinary team of investigators and analysts responsible for financial crime detection, forensic data analytics, and digital forensics. Lucas has a master's degree in ethics and is an NK certified examiner and Access Data certified examiner. And with that note then, if I can hand over to Lucas. Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you very much, Herman. Good morning, everybody. One of the key things that we have been seeing in my area, and that is the area that specifically looks at the security of our clients when they are using our online digital services, is a massive increase in online fraud over the past, or fraud attempts rather, over the past couple of months. The first level of lockdown, level 5, the fraudsters were also in level 5, it seems, but then when the rest of us went down to level 4, they went down to level 0. So it's not only small businesses and big businesses that are embracing the new digital approach. A lot of fraudsters, it seems, are also keen at making use of these opportunities, and that can be very, very dangerous for our clients. What we've seen specifically is that, we have a lot of security to protect the bank against hackers. So what the fraudsters have done is they have decided to go for the weakest link, and that is the clients. It's far easier to hack the client than it is to hack the bank. And obviously we put as many controls as we can into our digital solutions, but at some point there's also a level of responsibility that the client also has to, at the end of the day, observe. So opportunities are big, so are the risks. And one of the things that has changed as well is that you will not know who your client necessarily is if you're dealing with them online. So for that, I can just say welcome to our world. One of the key issues of any information security posture is that you have no idea who is on the other end of the internet. And trying to figure that out is a big, big challenge. And that is why all sorts of all sorts of measures have been introduced to authenticate the individual, and we'll go through some of those measures that will keep you safe as well. And then obviously staff working from home, and that makes them more vulnerable to hacking attacks as well. You have less control over possibly over what happens at a staff member's house. So keeping the home office secure is the first issue I'm going to be talking about, and some basic principles that you should rigorously adhere to for home office workers, including yourself. And the first one here is that nobody should have administrative rights, or should work with administrative rights. If you are a user who has admin rights on the computer for his work purposes, those admin rights should only be invoked at such times when you actually need them. Otherwise, you should make use of an account that does not have admin rights. And if a staff member of yours does not need admin rights, then they should not have those, because that allows all sorts of things to happen on the computer that will lessen the amount of control that you have over it. The next one is to keep your antivirus software up to date and your operating system and software patched. All those security updates that Windows rolls out, especially on what they call Patch Tuesdays, those are very, very important to adhere to. It's also very important that you make use of the latest antivirus software that's available, and that you keep that antivirus software as up to date as possible. And just on the antivirus software, if you have a Mac, you still need antivirus, and that's not debatable. So you need to use, for network, you need to use strong passwords on your computer and both your router. You need to become an IT security specialist. Your firm may not be able to afford a dedicated IT security specialist, but for the level of security that you require, there is nothing that prevents you from reading up, doing research. It's a very big topic, but you definitely can upskill yourself in IT security. Sometimes we just think about electronics, but investing in a shredder is also a very good idea. We have what we call rubbish bin surfing, and where fraudsters can get access to your rubbish that you chuck out, and if there are documents in there that contain private information, then obviously you need to make sure that they are you can get into trouble. So the next item, and that's something that Terence already spoke about a bit, is malware. That's maliciousware. That is viruses, trojans, and the like, all the nasties that you can get on your computer. And here I want to start that off with a little video.
Malware. Malware is designed to hack a computer or gain access to sensitive information without the owner's consent. Fraudsters send an email that looks as if it comes from Nedbank. The email contains a link or attachment, like a bank statement, for example. These attachments are fake, and they contain malware which is downloaded onto the user's computer if they're clicked on. These files often have an exe or cab extension, or are contained in archives such as zip files. Once the malware is downloaded, the fraudsters can gain access to your computer, view your login details, PINs, and/or passwords. Fraudsters also make use of email spoofing, where they create an email that looks like a Nedbank email address. Clicking on a link in a suspicious email, buying fake security software, granting remote access to your PC to strangers, or visiting an infected site can increase the chances of your computer being infected by malware. Beware of any attachments that end in exe, zip, cab, htm, or jar. These are executable files that allow malware to be loaded on your computer without your knowledge once you click on them. Be careful of files that prompt you to authorize an action to execute, install, or upgrade software. Ensure that you have Trust Here Report on your computer. This online fraud protection software is free to all Nedbank clients. Also ensure that you have reliable, up-to-date antivirus software installed on all of your computers. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. Financial experts who do good.
Okay, so how do these pieces of malware end up on your computer? So the first way in which that happens is that fraudsters send emails that look like Nedbank emails when in fact they're not. And these emails have attachments that contain malware that can infect your device when you click on them. And when you click on the attachment, the malware is downloaded onto your device without you even knowing it. There's also software that prompts you to authorize an action to execute, install, or upgrade software. Sometimes fraudsters may trick you into clicking on the attachment through fake proof of payments or bank statements. And for these, you have to be very careful. They may even call you and offer you help in downloading fake security software. I mean, we've had clients who have been phoned by Microsoft who's detected fraud on their computer. Ladies and gentlemen, in case there was any doubt, Microsoft will never phone you to tell you that they've detected a virus on your computer. And then once your device has been infected with malware, there is a lot of things that these fraudsters can do. They can gain access to all of your stored information. They can record everything you type, and that would include all the passwords as you type them. You might see little dots on the screen when you type the password, but they will be able to actually read the password. And that obviously includes your internet banking login credentials and all your other credentials as well. So on the next slide, we see an example of such a malware email that's supposed to look like a Nedbank statement that's been emailed to you. And one of the first things that we see there is that the attachment looks a bit weird. It says proof of payment, .cab. And you have to there are quite a few types of attachment types that you have to be careful of, but especially those that end in .exe, .zip, or .cab are executable files. And once you click on that file, you will be able to install malware onto your computer. And that obviously is something that you need to avoid at any cost. How do you tell where it's coming from? Well, no, you don't look at the email address where it's coming from, because that is extremely easy to what we call spoof, to imitate. So even if it says business@nedbank.co.za or NBB notification @nedbank.co.za, that does not mean that that is where the email originated from. If you look at the subject, very often the subject of these emails is something that they want to use to entice you, or sometimes also to scare you. So it can be an email that says there's been fraud detected on your computer. If you also look at the subject line here, notice the incorrect punctuation. That's one thing about the fraudsters. 99% of them can't spell. So that is always a dead giveaway that it isn't from us. So if we look at on the next slide, the main things that you need to keep in mind is not to open attachments or links from unknown sources. You have to be aware of attachments that end in .exe, .cab, .htm, or sometimes also .jar, because they often contain malware. If you click on an attachment and it asks you to execute or install or upgrade something, don't do it. And if there are any hyperlinks, and we're going to get to phishing soon, if there are any hyperlinks in the email, just hover your mouse over the hyperlink to see where it actually takes you, because the hyperlink, what you see on the screen, might not be the actual hyperlink. If you hover your mouse over the hyperlink, you'll see the real address that you'll be taken to if you click on that hyperlink. And then you need to ensure that you have a firewall and up-to-date antivirus software installed on all your devices. Next, we come to email hacking, which is something that was already touched upon in one of the previous questions to the previous speaker. If we look at what email hacking is and how the fraudsters gain access to your email account, more often than not, they send phishing emails to gain access to your email, to your usernames and your passwords, and that they then use to hack your email account. And how you avoid this is you should never enter your email credentials on a website accessed using a hyperlink that you received by email or SMS. Especially some of the smaller businesses, you might be running everything on a Gmail account. If that is the case, then you should use two-factor authentication, such as an SMS notification sent to your cell phone to protect your email account. If you have a domain registered and you have email addresses linked to that domain, you have to be double sure that if you receive an email, say, from your service provider to say there's an issue with your account, that you do not log on to your online account via any hyperlink that was sent to you in an email. In general, hyperlinks in emails are scary things, and for that reason, a Nedbank will never send you an email with a hyperlink that will take you anywhere where you need to enter your credentials. And a question we often get is, how do the fraudsters get your email details? So you may have used the credentials of your email account to register on a website that was hacked and your credentials were stolen. Your computer may have been infected with malware, and that malware could also have accessed the password to your email. And you could also be tricked into clicking on a link or an SMS that says maybe you've run out of storage space or that you need to validate your credentials to prevent your emails from being deleted. So what to do if your email account is being compromised? You need to change your email password immediately, and not on the same device because it could have malware on it, but on a different trusted device. Smartphones and tablets are less prone to virus infection, so it's a good idea then to change your password on your smartphone if that is possible. And then the actual device on which you access your emails should be checked for malware and disinfected by a specialist. And disinfection is actually one of the options. The other option is to completely reinstall everything on your computer, and that is generally, sometimes that's overkill, but in general that's actually not a bad idea if that's at all possible. And then you need to inform all of your email contacts of the situation and ask them to flag any recent emails that they received from you. And last but not least, you also need to call the contact center, our call center, as well as your banker, your financial planner, suppliers, any other persons with whom you have a financial relationship. Because once these fraudsters are inside your email address, there is no limit to the amount of damage that they can do. They have samples of your letterheads. They know that you play golf with a particular supplier, and they can use all sorts of, insert all sorts of chit chat into correspondence with that supplier, for instance, that will make him completely lower his guard. And obviously, the obverse of this is also true. If we look on the next slide, dealing with customer emails, you might also be the victim of somebody else's email account that's been hacked. So if you receive any request from a customer via email, you should always contact them through another channel, and the best one is still to pick up the phone and just confirm that request. And if the customer contact numbers have been changed or updated recently, that's also something that might have to trigger alarm bells with you. And if that happens, then maybe you should contact the customer on the old number that you had for him first. As per usual, look out for grammar and spelling errors. Sometimes the criminals create a very similar looking email, but to what you used to read, but be on the lookout for subtle differences. The next topic I'm going to touch on is phishing, smishing, and vishing. And for that, we're going to look at a video first.
Phishing. Criminals use fake emails to get your login details, PINs, and/or passwords. You get an email with a link that directs you to a fake website where you're requested to enter your login details, PINs, and/or passwords. Scammers use these details to get access to your accounts. Smishing. Fraudsters send you a text message which tells you to click a link that sends you to a fake website. The site requires you to enter your login details, PINs, and/or passwords. To keep yourself safe, don't open attachments or click on links in emails or text messages from unknown sources. Nedbank will never ask you to log onto internet banking through an attachment or link in an email. Never give your card PIN, online banking PIN, or password, or your Nedbank ID password to anyone. Phishing. Fraudsters call you pretending to be an employee from Nedbank and try to trick you into giving them sensitive information. Sometimes they use caller identity spoofing so that calls look like they're from Nedbank when they're not. If in doubt, ask the caller to send their request to you in writing or offer to call back. Don't return the call using the contact details they give you. Rather use the official Nedbank details, which you can find at nedbank.co.za. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. Financial experts who do good.
Right. So what happens with phishing, vishing, and smishing? So if we start off with phishing, that is when fraudsters send emails that resemble Nedbank emails, but they are in fact not these emails. And if we look at an example of such a phishing email, there we see a email that a typical phishing email, and there you can see that the email address has been spoofed. It says Nedbank, but actually it's from another email address. That might be the case, and that might not, but definitely be on the lookout for strange-looking email addresses. Then you can see that the Nedbank, so-called Nedbank email contains numerous errors on it. Spot the mistakes in there if you have the time afterwards. And then lastly, of course, we see that there's a hyperlink where it says that you have to follow that to update your account on the new Nedbank platform. Now, like I mentioned previously, we will never send you a hyperlink that will take you to a site where you need to enter any credentials. So the moment you receive such an email, that should automatically let the warning bells go off. We've also seen phishing in the COVID era. Here's one that a website that we've seen recently, COVID-19 debt assistance. We definitely offer debt assistance to clients, but if you follow that link, you are definitely going to get into bigger trouble than you might already be in. So the fraudsters have embraced all sorts of COVID themes over the past couple of months, and because what we call social engineering, and that is the art of hacking not a computer but hacking the human behind the computer. Because social engineering, a large aspect of it is based on fear, and we all fear the situation, we fear the virus, we fear the economic situation, etc. That just helps the fraudsters to commit to get you to click on that link. And then obviously once you click on the link, you will be taken to a fake website. And on the next page, we'll see how such a fake website might look like. And you're asked to type in your details, and then you're asked to go to the next page. You're asked to pass on to the next page where you're asked for even more information. And such as, for instance, your cell phone number. cell phone number capture, and that the fraudsters can then use, if you're making use of the retail solution, they can then do something with your cell phone number, for instance, a SIM swap, or they can phone you and convince you to accept the approve it message. And once the fraudsters have taken over your account, they can then add themselves as a beneficiary. So we have two-factor authentication on all of our solutions, but what we have seen is there are a couple of ways in which the fraudsters can override that two-factor authentication, and that all has to do with security on the client side of things. The first thing they can do is to do a SIM swap, and that is to convince your mobile network operator, your cell phone company, that they are you and you need a new SIM card, and then that message is going to be sent to the cell phone with the new SIM card in it. Fortunately, Nedbank makes use of a SIM swap detection system that is able to detect this type of event. But you still have to be very cautious of SIM swaps. And quite interestingly, SIM swaps are not just something that happens to the banking sector. I spoke a while back to a colleague from one of the cell phone companies, and he says that SIM swaps are used in all sorts of different scenarios as well. For instance, they dealt with a customer of theirs who before had placed a large advertisement in a newspaper, and then before a long weekend, the fraudsters then went and did a SIM swap on his cell phone number, which was in the advertisement, and all the calls for that advertisement actually then went to one of his competitors. So there's no limit to some of the funny stuff that people can do out there. The other way in which fraudsters can take over your approve it message is to convince you to accept it. And unfortunately, we've seen that a fairly large number of clients accept these approve it messages that go to their cell phone without actually reading what is on the message. So, and for that, they specifically will make use of phishing, which we're also going to be talking about. And what phishing is the same thing as phishing almost, where you receive an email, but in phishing, you receive a voice phone call, V for voice. So you receive a phone call, and somebody on the other end who pretends to be from Nedbank then takes you through a whole story that there's been something that's happened to your account. So you have to be very, very cautious when you receive a phone call. And usually once they've talked you through this scary situation, the next thing they say is, well, for security reasons, we are now going to send you an approve it message. And you receive an approve it message. Meantime, they've actually logged on to your account, and they just need you to accept that approve it message for the beneficiary to be added to your profile for them to be able to make the payment, the fraudulent payment. And very often clients, they're on the phone and they're not really paying attention. They may be scared of what they've just, what the fraudsters have just told them, and they just accept the approve it. So if there's one takeout that everybody needs to go away with from this webinar, it's that you should always read all security messages, not just approve it, but any security message where you're required to authenticate something, make 100% sure that what it is you're authenticating is what you think you're authenticating. Now, the business solution, Nedbank Business, or NBB as we call it, is a separate solution from the retail one that provides some extra security. And Herman has already talked about the AVS service that is included in Nedbank Business, but Nedbank Business also has a whole bunch of other features, and one of the biggest ones is actually the token. It's a dongle that you plug into a USB port on your computer, and you actually cannot access internet banking on the web without that token being inserted into your computer. It also allows you, if you have multiple users with rights to your internet banking profile within the organization, to set user rights per feature and at account level. So, for instance, somebody might only be allowed to capture transactions, and only the financial officer is allowed to authorize that transaction. Obviously, something that I'm not going to go into big detail as well is in this presentation is the aspect of internal fraud. So, we've put our staff members in home offices, and that does create occasionally the risk of internal fraud as well. As much as we want to trust everybody in the world, times are tough, and you need to make sure that the absolute maximum security levels are in place that you can possibly carry out. What is good about why the token is better than or more secure than the second factor authentication on our retail solution is because it is a combination of something you have, which is the token with a certificate, and something you know, which is the token PIN and the login password. The fraudsters do not have the token, so they would actually have to gain access to the token in order to defraud you. And you can also lock down your internet banking to a specific IP address if you have a fixed IP address within your organization. But you also have to be very, very careful about how you go about handling the token. So the first thing that you need to keep in mind with the token is that you still need to make absolutely sure that you have the very best antivirus software on your computer. The second thing is that you should not keep the token plugged in at all times. You should only insert the token into your computer when you're going to be transacting on Nedbank Business, because there is a risk that through malware, the fraudsters might gain access to your computer. They might keylog your credentials, and the token is already inserted into the computer, which means they can remote into your computer and transact on behalf of you. So just a bit of a summary then on the next page on how to be safe. Never share your card PIN or banking login details with anyone. That's one of the things that the fraudsters do. And if your mobile device has been lost or stolen, we're used to phoning our mobile network operators the moment our phone has been stolen. But you actually, with all the stuff that's on your phone nowadays, including your banking app, it is actually very, very important, if your mobile device is stolen, to contact your bank as soon as possible. You need to read every approve it message very carefully before you accept it. And if you receive a one-time password or OTP as a two-factor message, you should never share that with everyone. You have to be very cautious about clicking on links in an email or SMS. And an SMS, we do not see that as much as vishing and phishing, but smishing is where you receive a fraudulent SMS with a hyperlink. And then if you lose cell phone connectivity for some time for no apparent reason, or you receive an SMS for a SIM swap that you did not request, you have to contact your mobile network operator as well as the bank by calling us as soon as possible on our helpline number. And if you suspect that your information has been compromised, you need to report it immediately by calling us. If you receive an email, you should hover your mouse over the hyperlink to reveal the actual URL. If that email you received is on a cell phone, for instance, you can achieve the same result if you long press on the hyperlink inside the email. And before you're entering your card or other personal information on any site, you have to look for the lock icon in the toolbar. And you need to check that this is a secure website. In other words, it should be HTTPS and not HTTP in the web address. Terence also spoke about that previously. It's also always better to type in web addresses yourself rather than clicking on links in an email or an SMS. And you also have to be extremely vigilant with social media sites like Twitter and Facebook, and never share your personal information on public pages. So, yeah. I've seen people sharing very happy about some document that they've just received. They've just registered a new company, and they're actually holding the registration document on the in front of the camera, and then placing that on Facebook. So, as far as online purchases are concerned, if you're making a first-time purchase online, do some research, check the online reviews, use secure payment systems like PayPal, or consider using one for just one card for online purposes purchases only. So keep the amount of money or funds that you have available on that card to the absolute minimum, and only use that card to do your online purchases. Like I said previously, make sure that you have the latest antivirus software installed on all your devices, and don't do online shopping on public Wi-Fi or unsecure networks, because fraudsters can easily hack these. Also, if you receive a suspicious email, you need to forward it to phishing@nedbank.co.za and delete it immediately. Next, I want to talk about a couple of schemes that we're seeing at the moment, schemes and scams that are very prevalent at the moment. Some of them are old, some of them are more new. The first one is the beneficiary maintenance scam. And this is a scam where you receive a letter or a fax or an email on your beneficiary's letterhead telling you that their banking details have changed, and they're going to request that you make your payments into a new account. And what you have to be very, very careful thereof is that this might be a fraudulent email, and you end up paying that sum of money into the fraudster's account. So you should always confirm that with the organization who supposedly sent you the email that they, in actual fact, have changed their banking details, and confirm what that account number is. If you receive banking details by email for a once-off payment, always confirm these details telephonically before making a payment. Beware of near identical email addresses. Sometimes the fraudsters don't hack an email account, but they create an email account that is very similar looking to the email account of the person that they're impersonating. And also hover your mouse over the email address to make sure that the response email address is the same as the sender's email address, and that can also be a big giveaway. When you're doing banking, try and make use of bank-defined beneficiaries. Those are the beneficiaries that Nedbank has already preloaded onto its system. Those go through an extremely rigorous process of checking to make sure that that is the actual account number of that organization or institution. And then also check documents for grammar errors and suspicious changes. And next we're going to be looking at another video.
Deposit scams. Deposit scams happen when fraudsters offer to buy goods or services from you and then send you altered or fraudulent tele-receipts, deposit slips, or internet payment confirmations to convince you that they've made a cash deposit or EFT into your account. Then they request that you release the goods or render services to them. If you rely solely on the proof of payment and release the goods or services, you may find that the payment was made with a fraudulent check, which is returned a few days later. The scammer disappears and you never receive payment. Don't be tricked into believing that a cash deposit or EFT was made. Always check your bank statement and make sure the funds are available, or use the Verify Payment tab on Internet Banking to verify any Nedbank payment. If you receive a check as payment, wait for it to clear before you release any goods or render services. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. Financial experts who do good.
Okay, Okay, so the next scam I want to talk about is a refund scam, and this scam involves the use of altered or fraudulent receipts or internet payment confirmations to trick you into believing that a payment has been made into your account. So the fraudster is going to ask you to refund them the money that they paid into your account incorrectly, and then they disappear with your money. So if we say, for instance, Mr. N runs a building supply company and he has regular customers that buy building materials from him and settle their accounts at the end of every month. But then Mr. N checks his bank statements and he sees 23,000 Rand reflecting, and he instructs the accountant to refund the 10,000 Rand. Then Mr. N receives an email from one of his customers saying that the accountant made an error, and instead of paying 13,000 Rand they owed him, she paid 23,000 Rand. They would like him to urgently return the overpayment. He instructs the accountant to refund the money, and a few days later he notices a debit of his account, and that what happened there was the payment was made with a fraudulent check that has now been dishonored. So the fraudsters have disappeared with the money, but for those of you who have been following the news, checks are on their way out. So to a large extent, this particular fraudulent modus operandi is going to become a thing of the past. So how to be safe on this one? Never rely on a proof of payment alone. Always confirm the payment. And you can use the Verify Payment Service, AVS, available on internet banking to make sure that you're making the payment into the correct account. And for those of you honestly still accept checks as payment, wait for the funds to be cleared before handing over the goods. And remember that bank guaranteed checks can also be forged. And then the last scary thing, and this is one that is currently extremely popular among fraudsters, is the tender scam. What happens there is the criminals send you an invitation to submit a government tender for the procurement of an item that is so rare that if you Google it, you will only find the fraudster's website. So, for instance, if we look there on the right, you receive an email from the Department of Health saying we are urgently looking for the B087Q atomizer machine. And there is a complete shortage of them internationally, and because of the COVID situation, we absolutely need this device. Well, guess what? There is no such thing as a B087Q atomizer machine. The fraudsters have gone and created a website that sells such a device. And if you go into Google and start Googling for a B087Q atomizer machine, the only website that you're going to come across is their website. And you're going to contact them, and you're going to be all excited, and you're going to contact the Department of Health, which are actually, in this case, not the Department of Health, but a bunch of clever fraudsters. And this way you're going to say, okay, great, you've received the tender, you put in the order, you pay the money, and then you never see that money again. You contact the Department of Health, and they say, well, hang on a second, we never sent out an email like this. And if you also then contact the supplier, he's disappeared into thin air. So, how to avoid this? The first thing is get real, ladies and gentlemen. This is like people who think they win the UK lottery without having actually purchased a lottery ticket. No government department is going to reach out to you out of the blue asking you to participate in a tender. And the second principle is one that is also important in all sorts of other situations, and that is that when you're sourcing products on the internet, you always need to do proper research, and you have to be extremely careful of shady-looking products or shady-looking websites. So do your research, actually do a Google map search and see if there's actually a building at this address that they claim to be at. And do other inquiries, see if there are reviews for this organization online or not. And I mean, how is it possible that in the entire world there's only one website where information is contained about a device like the B087Q atomizer machine? it's just, it is highly improbable, but yet we see on a almost daily basis clients falling for this type of scam. Obviously, on our side, we run various detection systems, and sometimes we can see that you've paid money to a shady company, but that becomes very difficult in certain circumstances. So, do your research, make use of AVS if you have NBB, and do due diligence with, and do not expect any government department to send you an email to ask you to participate in a tender. So that is all on my side. Over to you, Herman.
Lucas, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is quite a lot of information, but I think if there's one thing, and I think Lucas will agree, that you really need to take note of, and all of us need to take note of, is that you always have to be alert, you have to be vigilant, and you have to be savvy and know what are the trends. And that was really our intent, to share this information with you so that you can share with your staff, to be on high alert, so that if they pick up any signals of the examples that Lucas shared, that they must immediately escalate rather than to too quickly react on a request. We have a couple of minutes for questions, and just again to confirm, the content, the slides will also be shared with yourselves. That's the reason for this session, not just to for these 2 hours to expose you to it, but to also share the content with you so that you can use that for the protection of your organization. There's one question from Nico van Jaarsveld from Might Ocean Proprietary Limited. Nico, thank you. Nico mentions that the account verification service is good protection. But then the question, how can banks prevent fraudsters to open new accounts at the outset? Now, in other words, verification at the start. Now, Nico, I think that's where the FICA process comes in, and all the hoops that we need to go through to make sure that when we open an account that we know the client. We have an abbreviation, we use KYC, know your client. And that's exactly what that's about. Sometimes to the frustration of clients, because in order to make sure that it is authentic, the client and the account is authentic, in order to protect our other clients, we have to spend due diligence and make sure that the right account is opened and that it is an authentic entity behind that. But Lucas, do you maybe want to mention just something else on Nico's question?
Yes. So yes, that is a question we receive the whole time. How do the fraudsters manage to open these accounts? And how do they manage to circumvent KYC? Well, the answer is that they don't open the accounts themselves. They approach somebody on the street, and pay that person 200 Rand to go into a branch, open an account, and then afterwards hand the card and the PIN to that account over to the fraudsters. And obviously that person who goes into the branch, he's not impersonating anybody. That is really who he says he is. So they pass all the KYC, and the account gets opened, and the card then gets handed over outside to the fraudsters together with the PIN for the card. I mean, that is something that is extremely prevalent across the industry. We're seeing that, but everybody else is seeing that as well. It is one of the things that we specifically are on the lookout for when we perform our fraud detection behind the scenes.
Thank you, Lucas. Maybe another quick question from Nico, and this is a question whether fraudsters can gain access to the token certificate.
So the token certificate, how the fraudsters always, I mean, there are certain ways, I guess, in which the fraudsters could hack. The main thing the main way in which they could gain access to the token certificate is actually by gaining access to your computer. And that is what we have seen on one or two occasions over the past 6 years or so, is that the fraudsters gain access to the token certificate by accessing your computer, and that happens as a result of a malware infection, a Trojan that gets installed on the victim's computer. So I cannot repeat how extremely important it is to keep your antivirus software up to date, get the latest version, upgrade to the newest version, and make sure that those virus definition files are downloaded on a regular basis, daily basis, hourly basis.
And maybe to add to that, Lucas, again, it was mentioned earlier how important virtual private network is, VPN, especially now in this context with employees working from home. And actually one of the added security features on the Nedbank Business electronic banking platform is the IP address and the time limitation for people to log on to Nedbank Business. And what does this do is it actually allows the employer to force the employees working from home to dial on through a VPN and not in an unsecured way. Just another question, Nitesh Harry's Printers. How safe are password managers to be used across the organization? Will it help to eliminate the problem if users are writing down their passwords?
Yeah, this is a very, very good question and a very interesting question. Password managing software solutions are actually a great thing. We actually encourage organizations and users to make use of password managers. The trick then just is to make sure that you keep your password manager extremely secure. There are solutions out there where you can actually host your password manager on your own infrastructure, but the question then is how is that possible that is more secure to put all your passwords in one nice basket for the fraudsters to access them? Well, the thing is, the biggest reason why passwords get compromised in our time is because people reuse the same password very often, and they create very simple passwords that can be hacked. And quite honestly, a modern secure password, you should have a secure password for every single facility that you access. It should be completely different. And I know of no person who can possibly keep all of that information in their head. So it's better to have a password manager create these extremely long 20-character passwords that consist of all sorts of non-printable characters, etc., or rather squigglies and hashes and exclamation marks, and that you couldn't possibly remember yourself, and have a separate password for each one of your facilities, and then just put all of those into the password manager, and then you just have to go through the effort of remembering that one extremely secure password for your password manager. Preferably, you should also have second-factor authentication around your password manager. But, yeah, it is definitely good practice, but you just have to know what you're doing in terms of keeping your password manager secure.
Lucas, thank you. Just another comment from Ian Lewis from CSS. Ian, good to hear from you and good to have you on the web. Ian mentions, and Lucas, you also pointed it out earlier, that and maybe this just accentuates the importance of we have to be vigilant, that when you follow up with a call, just to make sure that when you speak to that individual, that you actually know that individual in the organization and not just speak to anyone. So just ask more questions to make sure that you speak to the right person. We are unfortunately out of time. As mentioned, there's still a lot of questions, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for that. But we will share the information after this webinar. And maybe just to conclude with that, ultimately, it is important to stay abreast of all the trends and developments. And hence the reason for us sharing this. That's why it's also important to, as a business owner, really understand and be in the detail of what's happening in the business and what's happening in your accounts, and that your staff are also very much aware what to be on the lookout for. We mentioned the security on Nedbank Business. We can still expand a lot on the security features. There's also the ability as business owner through the Nedbank Business mobile app to actually be mobile and remotely be on top of what's happening in your business and in your accounts. And then I think also important, another feature, final transactional information, usually abbreviated as FTI, which really gives you as a business owner the ability to have very good host-to-host reconciliation of the statements on your accounts and to really see what's happening on the entries. I'm now going to hand over to our third and last panelist, a very exciting trend. And again, maybe just to mention, COVID really did throw the globe into a lot of economic turmoil, and we all are very much aware of that. But it also unleashed a lot of innovation and will continue to unleash a lot of innovation and is actually reshaping the way we live, the way we shop, the way we engage, the way we trade. And that's very much the next topic that will be addressed and covered by our final panelist, Vishal Maharaj. And I'm going to just read you Vishal's bio. Vishal Maharaj was born in Durban and graduated at the University of Natal as a chemical engineer and as a Master's in Business Leadership from the University of South Africa. He has fulfilled varying strategic roles in contributing to the shaping and execution of the digital agendas of various organizations. He presently serves as an executive in the Digital Fastlane division at Nedbank, where he is currently a lead and founding member of Nedbank's exciting super app and bold move into the platform economy. This is Avo by Nedbank. Vishal recognizes that the source of distinctiveness for organizations would be in designing and delivering extraordinary digital customer experiences and is therefore keenly positioned to craft comprehensive digital transformation agendas. These agendas will move to prepare organizations for a digital and data-driven world. Vishal.
Thank you, Herman, and very good morning to our distinguished guest with us today. It is indeed an honor to speak to you around a topic that has reached massive scale in terms of people having opinions about it, people writing books about it, and certainly the word platform has really created a buzz. So hopefully today, through the presentation, I'm going to hopefully address demystifying the concept of platform economy. My presentation has two parts. The first one is to address the topic of platforms, and the second part is to introduce Avo by Nedbank, which is Nedbank's bold move into the platform economy. So without any further delay, I would like to possibly take the first slide to unpack and hopefully provide some context around what is a platform business. So on the left-hand side of the slide, you see a figure demonstrating aspects of what a pipeline business is. So pipeline businesses are traditional businesses, and yes, they hold a very, very strong, an important part in industries. How pipeline companies work is that they take in a number of inputs. They own a lot of the infrastructure to improve those inputs by providing incremental value on top of those inputs. And then with the finished products, they market it and they sell it to their customers. Now, pipelines look at internal optimization, look at constantly optimizing the value chain to improve incremental value at every part of the value chain, whether it's cost savings or improving the features of the product to have enhanced benefits to its market. Now, the focus primarily is on customer lifecycle value. It's about ensuring that I can maximize my output from every customer that I serve. Now, platform business, on the other hand, don't own the underlying assets that go into manufacturing the value that they put out to the market. Platforms, rather, introduce and bring participants, being consumers and businesses, to a digital marketplace. And yes, they do own usually the underlying digital technology that brings these consumers and businesses together to trade in goods and services in a highly integrated way, but they don't necessarily own all aspects of the infrastructure and the assets. Rather, they borrow these infrastructure and assets from the participants on the platform to be able to produce economic value. So you've heard the adage, Uber, the biggest taxi company in the world, but doesn't own a single taxi. You've heard the adage, Airbnb, the biggest hotel group in the world, but doesn't even own a single room. So all of these companies have mastered the trade of being platform businesses. Now what they do is they ensure that they provide a rich marketplace to bring these businesses together to either trade with consumers around the goods and services that they offer, or to trade with other businesses on the platform to provide incremental value. Now, as you can see, traditional pipeline businesses focus purely on customer value, whereas platform businesses focus on all aspects, all participants on the platform, whether you're a customer, whether you're a business, or whether you're a partner to the platform. And that's one of the key reasons as to why we have, as Nedbank, introduced Avo by Nedbank and ensured that we help our individual customers as well as our business customers thrive in a post-COVID world in the new normal. So on the next slide, I just want to introduce a little bit about platform economies for businesses. Now, platforms, in essence, have a number of components to it. So very simplistically, on the left-hand side of the slide, you would see that a platform could position itself in a home services ecosystem, providing goods and services in the home space. And that's pretty much what Avo has done, and I'll introduce a little bit more about that. But certainly, platforms also leverage the sticky nature of payments, allowing businesses, when they trade in goods and services, to get immediate, secure payments for their goods and services they trade on that platform. But ultimately, platforms is an amalgamation of partners and merchants that provide the value to the platform. Now, an essential aspect of every business is customers. And in Nedbank, what we've done is we've profiled customers along 3 categories. The life is tough, make it easy for me customer. The customer that is really struggling through these times as we get fit to living in a COVID-19 pandemic world. At the same time, you have the young and aspirational, the millennials, that we identify as part of our customer segment. And ultimately, family is everything. And we keenly position our platform, and I'll speak to more to that, to serve each and every one of these customer segments. But what is the underlying importance of platform economies for business? Well, platform economies drive scale. And how do they do that? They start with a little nugget, a minimum viable product that they put out into the market. They create a digital marketplace, and they do something exceptionally well, which brings a lot of customers that enjoy the experience, enjoy the convenience, enjoy the deals that this platform company is putting out there. But then this experience brings more customers, which then brings more businesses to come on board, more partners to come on board. Why? Because everybody likes a buoyant marketplace. But when new partners and new businesses come on board, with the insights generated in that platform, they start to see the benefits of serving a new community of users, and they start to improve their offerings. This brings more customers. More customers in turn creates that spiraling and network effect to bring more customers. And this is indeed the reason why Nedbank has decided to foray into the platform economy world, to provide large-scale customer adoption and merchant adoption for both our individual customers as well as our business customers. So on that note, you would see that the platforms that we've researched across the globe, whether it's in Southeast Asia, the big players, the household brands like Alipay, Alibaba, WeChat, Rakuten in Japan, Paytm in India. We went to the West as well, and we looked at Amazon, the great giant platform organization of the West. We haven't seen anything in Africa that has reached the scale and proportions of these other candidate platform organizations I spoke to. What we've done, however, is that we've tackled this problem for Africa, for South Africa, and we've introduced Avo, the very first platform of its kind in those geographies. So on the next slide, I just want to unpack the question: is South Africa ready for a platform economy? Well, in June 2018, a paper was released that emphatically said, no, South Africa is not ready for a platform economy. And these were the reasons that were highlighted in the paper. Firstly, the paper identified that the digital user size and savviness of mobile users in South Africa is not up to scratch with global metrics. It also unpacked that South Africa doesn't have an open innovation culture. We are far more insular in the way we conduct business, rather than looking at synergies across the spectrum and how we can participate with other companies and other industries to provide value, to provide innovation in how we bring our products and offerings to the market. It also unpacked that technology-wise, we don't have access necessarily to the mainstream or bleeding-edge technologies that make platform companies what they are in today's world. It unpacked that we have a skill shortage, and possibly digital talent and entrepreneurship is definitely on the short side. And it said, well, policy and regulation hasn't necessarily provided a cultivated land for these sorts of platform companies to sprout and to succeed in a sustainable way. However, I don't think anybody was prepared for a black swan event like the COVID-19 pandemic that we currently experiencing and will continue to experience in the foreseeable future. And what we did as Nedbank a while back is we started talking about how can Africa be successful at sprouting a platform business and letting it thrive in all scenarios. And we systematically addressed the 5 inhibitors that were identified in the paper co-authored by Accenture and Gordon Institute of Business. And we addressed each and every one of these. If I can just pick a few samples, when it came to technology readiness, we understood that we had to go out into the global economy looking for technology partners that have built up experience in building these platform companies and partner with these technology companies to build what is now Avo. We looked at fundamentally using this talent from global companies to cultivate our own talent in South Africa, and making sure that we've always buddied up one technical SME or subject matter expert with one of our own subject matter experts, so that the cross skilling happens. We further looked at really working with policy and regulation around understanding, and as a bank, we're continuously looking to comply to the highest levels and make sure whatever we put out there is safe, is robust in terms of compliance to regulation and governance, and that it provides a fertile ground for businesses to join a platform like Avo, to be able to trade in goods and services with consumers in a safe and legal way. So on that note, I'm just going to play a video that really introduces Avo, which then takes us into the next part of the presentation.
No, not the super fruit used for good guacamole, but the super innovative all-in-one super app by Nedbank, used to do life differently. Groceries, home repairs, at-home digital entertainment, great deals, payments. I've got it all in one super app. Avo rewards you and takes care of your daily needs. Visit avo.africa and do life differently.
Okay, so let's talk about Avo by Nedbank. So Avo by Nedbank, like I said, is Nedbank's bold move into the platform economy that sprouted from a whole host of research around how can Nedbank, with its digital first in digital mindset, help our customers and our business clients prosper in the new normal. And what we introduced was a platform that connects customers or consumers to businesses in a highly integrated way to trade in goods and services. So on this slide, you'll see that customers get an app. The app provides rich tapestry of experiences for our customers, where they can shop from the latest and greatest deals, from homeware to tech to home appliances. They can shop through our participating food retailers from many grocery outlets close to their home. They could buy groceries, check it out in one single basket, although they buy from many retailers, with one secure payment and one delivery to their home same day or at least the very next day. This convenience is what we pride ourselves on in order to allow consumers to shop online rather than going into physical environments at risk of contracting the virus. We also have a very, very unique feature around home services, where we've pre-vetted more than 450 home service merchants that are available to your every need and want in your home. Things break in your home. We all run households, we know. We all need plumbers, electrical suppliers. As it got colder in the Highveld, we needed access to firewood, or we needed access to refilling our gas bottles. All of these services and many more are available on Avo. And if you cannot find a service provider, we have a very efficient call center back office environment that allows an agent to engage in a very friendly chat with you on your mobile, to be able to find you a pre-vetted, pre-certified service provider from our whole host of business community clients that we have in order to serve your need. But we also have the stock standard features. For example, we have value-added services, which is prepaid electricity, airtime, and data, and much more. We as a platform that's continuously looking to refresh its propositions and offering, you would see new experiences for the consumer come to light in making sure that we provide great convenience, great deals for our customers in everything that we do. If you watch the space, and if you go right now to your app store and download the customer version of Avo by typing in Avo on the search bar, downloading the app and signing up, you would start to see and be part of this world and experience. We will continuously provide new propositions, and you'll see that in the short term we will be helping our restaurant and takeaway communities also form part of this platform by offering takeaways on Avo for consumers to purchase, with delivery taken care of by Avo. So all of these value-added features would be sprouting continuously on Avo. But this is the important part, is that, and this is the most important part, is that as a business serving, Avo as a platform serving tens of thousands of consumers, as a business, by participating on that platform, you get a chance to expose your goods and services to these customers. And when you do, we ensure that as a participant on the business, you get the opportunity to expose your wares to these consumers. For these consumers to buy, we provide bank-grade security in terms of payment features to allow you to get real-time, immediate settlement for the sales that you make on the platform. And I'll touch on that a little bit more. But what else do you get as a business? You get your own app, and this app provides you with quality leads, because we've invested a lot of money into Avo as a business in Nedbank, and we continue to invest generously in our marketing efforts to grow the platform, to get more consumers on and therefore more businesses on. And we will continue to do that, providing quality leads for you, for your business, to be able to sell your goods and services on the platform. But at the same time, the business gets a wallet. How Avo works is that consumers get a wallet, business gets a wallet. And when trade happens on the platform, value moves immediately from a customer's wallet into a business's wallet. On that note, we've also created high innovation in terms of payments, and we have a very unique offering called payment reservation. Now, in our research, consumers on the one hand, when they participate online with goods and service merchants, they usually are very worrisome about being scammed. My colleagues before me spoke about the issues around cybersecurity and risk and fraud that's amass in the e-commerce world. Certainly, this flows through in terms of the fears that people have in terms of shopping on online platforms. But what we've done is we've allowed, with a very, very innovative feature, for a user on the platform, when they buy goods or services, for them to pay their monies due for that goods and services into a reservation fund. We hold it securely in Nedbank. The goods and services are delivered by the merchant that's on the platform. And when it's found to be in good order, the user then releases the funds, and the funds flows with immediate settlement into the merchant's wallet. Now, it also secures the merchant from unwilling payers. And that's how our research has told us, is that merchants themselves benefit from this payment reservation, because a lot of the merchants would have said, I've delivered the goods in order, I've delivered the service in order, yet I have an unwilling payer. So certainly, payment reservation creates a massive opportunity to conduct trade in a far more safe and secure way. So on the next slide, I wanted to introduce Avo a little bit more as a platform and just describe the components of Avo. So firstly, like I said, Avo creates very unique, beautiful digital experiences for businesses to be able to trade in goods and services with customers. So these experiences could be, purchasing groceries online. It could be purchasing takeaways or food for delivery to your home. It could be the home services journey. And that's what we pride ourselves on as a platform business, is to make these experiences as beautiful as possible so it brings more customers, which bring more businesses. However, we also leverage our bank rate security to provide that sticky nature of payments to ensure that people can pay more securely, more conveniently. Avo extends payments beyond just purchasing goods and services on the platform. It extends payments in terms of our cool, innovative feature, which we've also taken from one of the digital innovations in the bank, to be able to do scan to pay. Contactless payments, like you understand, touch-free payments, has become the norm, and in terms of people and consumers, when they go into bricks and mortar establishments, they want to pay without necessarily touching the devices. Avo, as an app, allows you to scan and pay a multitude of QR codes and make payments securely at tills. Now, Avo also leverages a very, very keen loyalty and rewards capability. So just by becoming a business participant on the platform, you inherit a loyalty and rewards capability that is funded by Avo itself. So Avo prides itself in ensuring that customers get rewarded more often than not. And almost everything that's sold on Avo by you as a business results in 1% cashback in reward to the consumer. So obviously, the benefits that accrue to you as a business is that you inherit this loyalty and reward program that's funded by Avo, which drives more and more volume in terms of consumers who actually want to amass these loyalty points and to spend it on the platform at participating businesses like yourselves. And then ultimately, the last component I want to talk about, which is exceptionally important in any platform business, is actually the artificial intelligence and machine learning capability we've built into Avo. So with the data that we generate on the platform, we use that data to provide deep data-driven insights to yourselves as a business platform, as a business participant on the platform, and you can use that to understand customer trends, customer preferences, how to access markets better, what are the great aspects of your products that customers benefit from, and what are they telling you in terms of where the improvements should be. And you could use this to grow your business on a digital marketplace like Avo. So ultimately, what are the benefits for you as a business? And hopefully these 5 points hit home. So as we've seen in a COVID world, the new normal prevail, and a lot of businesses have been caught short in terms of how to address online shopping, how to enter the foray of e-commerce and to expose their wares, their products and services in a digital world and conduct business in a digital world. Now, what Avo does is that it helps businesses who have been traditional bricks and mortar establishments accelerate their e-commerce strategy by adopting a platform like Avo, which is far more cost effective to enter into e-commerce than having to build out that infrastructure themselves. So Avo provides the platform, the tools, the capabilities for you to really accelerate your e-commerce online shopping portal into your business. But also, Avo doesn't seek to amass profits in the way traditional e-commerce businesses do, by charging margins on top of the products and services, sometimes excessively. We don't have to do that. We underpinned by a financial services organization, which is Nedbank. And with Nedbank, we take our financial products and we integrate it into our offerings to our businesses and our consumers, so that when you're a consumer and you're looking to buy a new fridge for your home, you can fund that with a Nedbank personal loan or unsecured loan. At the same time, we will bring very, very innovative insurance products to bear to help your business insure you better. For example, if you're a home service provider, you can acquire a workmanship guarantee insurance product from us that increases your stature, increases your credibility on the platform, and helps you get more jobs. Now, ultimately, as Avo as well, and I spoke to the data insights, we certainly want to use the data we generate and the insights we generate to help you and your business grow more satisfactorily on Avo and to thrive. And I think the other aspect of what I wanted to talk to in terms of the benefits of Avo to your business is that a lot of us, when we enter into the e-commerce online shopping world, the very first thing, the question that comes to mind is, how do I move my goods last mile, locally, but as well as nationwide? And being a platform, what Avo has done, it has been able to onboard logistics partners that serve to fulfill your needs, whether you're moving goods locally or whether you're moving goods nationwide. And certainly, being a participant as a business on the platform, you can get access to these vital services to be able to help you move in a very cost-effective way your goods last mile as well as nationwide. So on that note, I hope I've given you a whole tapestry of the benefits for you and your business by becoming a participant on the Avo platform. And I encourage you to go into the App Store, download Avo Business, and sign up today. And if you have any issues in terms of signing up, we are absolutely on hand to be able to help you through that journey in a very high-touch, high-care way. And I thank you for your time. Back to Herman.
Thank you, Vishal. Quite exciting, and I think, for any business owner, based on what we've seen in international developments and what the COVID pandemic changed in the world in terms of the importance of being able to connect with your customer base, the Avo platform really makes that possible. maybe a first question, Vishal, which I think is important, and it's a big question. And you did mention that you looked at platform plays internationally to pick up the trends and to see what's happening. And there might be business owners listening to this and saying, but when I go onto the Avo platform, is there benefits to insist on exclusivity? In other words, I want to be the only fast foods chicken provider on the platform. What is your perspective on that in what you saw internationally, and whether that is economically the right move or not?
It's a very good question, Herman. I think, as we engage with our business clients on a regular basis, as they hear about Avo and they want to be part of it, to expose their goods and services in a digital way to a digital marketplace, we get asked that question often. And as I've been speaking about platforms, I'm sure the audience has started to realize that platforms are very open by nature. And the reason why it has to be open is because ultimately, in any ecosystem, customer is king. And you want to provide customers that variety, that optionality, to be able to serve their own needs, interests, and wants in the way that they find it appropriate on the platform to do so. Now, if you had to constrain, for example, a very good example, if you had to constrain a customer in only being able to provide, to consume or to acquire a certain brand of chicken, you definitely exclude a large portion of your population that has other brand taste or customer preferences. So what you want to do as a platform business is you want to stimulate the network effect of ensuring you provide an opportunity for businesses with a varying array of products to be able to sell to your user community and to deliver on those preferences that this vast user community demands. And when you deliver in that accordance, you grow your customer base rapidly on platforms. I mean, most of those platform companies I've spoken to have been able to, by ensuring that they create an open architecture, by ensuring that they allow all kinds of participants onto the platform from a business perspective, have scaled their platforms to hundreds of millions of customers, and if not, some of them even billions of customers. And when you scale a platform to that level, and when you look at, yes, we are local at this point in time in South Africa, but looking to scale throughout Africa, the opportunity for businesses at large to be able to amass a net new customer base just by participating on the platform that is open in nature is a lot more had we had to provide exclusivity to certain businesses or certain brands of products, etc. So we'll continue to ensure as far as possible to keep the platform open, to give it variety, to give it convenience, to give it coverage to our customers so that we amass more and more customers, which benefits businesses participating on the platform.
Vishal, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I know we're over time, but I think there's a couple of important questions here, and I thank you for staying online. We can see we still have a large audience online. And then maybe just to cover one or two questions on Avo. Vishal, one of the webinars or attendants actually mentioned that they had a great experience. They've heard horror stories about online grocery shopping and then how long it takes to deliver the goods. He actually, 2:30 in the afternoon, ordered goods on Avo and it was delivered within an hour. Can you maybe expand on that, especially for a business owner who sits here and listens to this and say, right, well, I have a business in Middelburg, and how do I make sure that if my customer base now via Avo purchase from me, that they'll still have a great experience? You did touch on that, but maybe just elaborate.
Fabulous question. I think if the audience will indulge me to speak in a very practical way around the network effects of the platform and how a business participating on the platform can leverage another business's services to be able to improve their own offering. Because that's exactly how we came to be able to provide great service levels in terms of online grocery shopping. It's an interesting story. When when our president announced the lockdown, we had a partner on the platform that had an online grocery shopping platform that we leverage in Avo to be able to deliver goods, groceries to our customers. And they were averaging around 5,000 orders a month. Because of the lockdown and people moving away from physical environments to do shopping onto online, their volumes increased to 25,000 a month. Now that's a mammoth growth. And it resonates with the other panelists speaking about the rise in e-commerce during this period. Now, obviously, with increased demand for online shopping comes regressed service levels. And at one stage, we were very concerned. Our service levels moved from same-day grocery deliveries to 7 days and beyond. Now, you know, when people want food, it's an impulsive purchase. And I expect it to be delivered within the same day, or at least the very next day. But 7 days is just ridiculously long. So what we did was we looked at the network effects of the platform, which is Avo, and we by then had onboarded another logistics partner that traditionally was in the car rental business, banks with Nedbank as well. And they re-envisioned their business to become a delivery partner for groceries on the Avo platform. And they did 5 deliveries on the 5th of April, and they peaked at 600 deliveries in a single day on the platform. Now that provided the capacity, the augmented capacity that our other partner, grocery partner, delivery partner needed in order to bolster their delivery network and capacity and to bring the service levels back into same day. And that's the beauty about how a platform works. It really not only involves offering great service and product to consumers, but also leveraging the benefits of each other as business participants on the platform to really improve the whole.
Thank you, Vishal. Mike Roller from Clean Cut Glass and Mirror asked the following question. Can the Avo payment platform be used for almost guaranteeing payments from customers with the payment reservation that have a monthly account with us?
Fantastic question. So that's exactly the reason why we started producing the payment reservation product, was because of that very need that Mike mentioned. So when a consumer moves their funds, and let's say they've just bought glass, you know, when they move their funds from the wallet, their wallet, into the reservation fund wallet, that value is secured by Nedbank, okay? Unless the consumer has a very core reason why they believe that the supplier has not delivered in accordance with their expectations, right? That funds will sit there. The consumer cannot automatically reverse the funds. It's secured in the reservation fund. And if there's a dispute, we have agents on hand in our back office environment to be able to help mediate on the dispute, to try and settle, to ensure that there's a consensus reached around the value share. And if that does not work, and sometimes, unfortunately, business has to go into far more greater levels of mediation with the consultation of legal, etc., we can actually support on that as well. But ultimately, that secures, you know, secures a merchant from and protects a merchant in receiving their funds against the glib action of a consumer who says, well, I'm just going to reverse the funds. It's not possible.
Vishal, thank you. Mike has a second question, and I think it latches to Joshua McClotwa's from Protege Investments question, and this is more about the management cost associated with Avo, or what is the commission rate? Can you maybe just touch on that for us?
You know, like I said earlier in the presentation, our economics and the way we've modeled Avo is to not charge high margins and markups on the goods that we put onto Avo, or services for that matter. We look for innovative ways to use and leverage our financial products as Nedbank to make sure that we can fund some of the economics on Avo. So we're always looking to provide the greatest deals out there for consumers because it benefits the businesses. So on that note, our home services, and we'll and I'll be absolutely happy to share a tapestry of our charges and fees to our business participants on the platform. But if you take, for example, your home services provider, we charge a nominal fee of 6.5% for jobs done on the platform. If you take a restaurant or takeaway, we charge a highly competitive markup, a fraction of what you'll see other incumbents in the industry that do food and takeaway deliveries charge. And why? Because we want to encourage more consumers to the platform. We want to help society really through these tough times stretch their money a bit further. So each product on Avo has its own charge and fees that we charge, but I can assure you that we are continuously looking at lowering those prices so as to stimulate the network effects.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know we're over time, and I really appreciate your patience. I think this is a very important topic. One last question I'm going to ask to Vishal. Vishal did touch on that, but if we can just quickly revisit that comment you made earlier in your presentation. I'm a business owner. I listen to this, and I want to sign up. What do I do?
Excellent. So if you're a business owner and you want to sign up, we've tried to make the sign-up process as seamless and as frictionless as possible. So you could go right now to your app store and type in Avo Business. The app will come up whether you use an Android device or an Apple phone. The app will come up, download it, and click on sign up. It's a very seamless process for sole props, single director businesses, both new to franchise, you don't have a banking relationship with Nedbank, or even our existing very valuable Nedbank clients. You can sign up as well very seamlessly. If you have a partner in your business, and there's more than one director, it is a little bit more onerous, but you're absolutely happy to go to, and I'll be very grateful if you go to about.avo.africa. Type in www.about.avo.africa, and you will have access to our services environment, our contact details, etc., where you can get in touch with us, send us an email, give us a phone call, and we will gladly assist you in signing up your business, setting up your business on Avo to be able to trade in goods and services in a new normal world.
Vishal, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, so we looked at the international trends on e-commerce and on digital. And yes, we are finding ourselves in a pandemic that changed the world and changed life, I think, for the foreseeable future. However, it also just accentuated the importance of the fourth industrial revolution, and that we maybe not were on our way to it, but that it rushed from the future to us. And as any business owner, we trust that you found value in this session, that in order for growing your business, it is really important to embrace a digital strategy. Engage with Nedbank. We have solutions, as mentioned, that can assist you, that can give your customer base a seamless experience and a great client experience. We can work with you to make sure that you mitigate the risks that will come with it. As we all know, there's always risk. It's how we manage and mitigate it. But then maybe to go back to the comment from Mark Zuckerberg at the beginning of the session. Ultimately, we are human beings in a highly digitized world. And what makes us tick is to connect with each other. And that applies in the business world as well. And we trust that through this overview of Avo, that as a business owner, you can see the opportunity how you can still really meaningfully connect with your customer base and grow your business. We thank you for your time, and stay safe.